Everyone, welcome to another exciting edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. On this episode, I'm delighted to be talking with someone who has been very patient with me this evening as I've had Zoom drops and such things, and also someone whose work is really interesting, loving the use of atmosphere on the comics page, I have to say. Glad to be talking with creator Justin Koch. Justin,
Hi.
thanks for jumping in. Hi.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Thanks for being here, for talking about the creating that you're doing. I know on this episode we're talking about SWAT. You also have a book called Edge of Darkness that is on the way, which has some wonderful atmosphere and creativity on both of those projects from what I've seen. Lots of creativity.
Yeah, I think that's yeah. It's Edge of Darkness was it's much shorter. It's only 6 issues, but it's a kind of a I don't know, biopunk type thing where humans that have been living underwater for millions of years beneath the edge of darkness, which is the line where sunlight doesn't penetrate anymore. And they sort of developed this technology to have like squid suits where
Mhm,
they
mhm.
the suit sort of encapsulates them, uh lets them breathe water, and then they can do around, you know, fly around, do underwater stuff. So everybody lives in the sponge, which is this vast sponge where everyone lives. So that one's really cool. I mean, I'm looking forward to getting that one out there as well. But the main reason we're here is SWAT, which is short for the Secret Wizard Assault Team, and it's kind of like The Wire meets What We Do in Shadows meets The Venture Brothers meets sort of everything that's been in my head for 40 years. So
Love that. I love that, and really nice mingling from what I've seen of like the crime genre approach as well as supernatural, both of which are things that I enjoy. Especially enjoy crime stories when there's a little twist, there's a little extra flavoring there.
if you like twists, you're going to love SWAT, because my
Nice.
whole approach to writing is basically uh, I think you need to trick the audience into thinking or I want them to think they know what's happening, but they don't know what's happening.
Hmm.
Because I think I learned this from Game of Thrones, right? Like first they start with Ned Stark. He's like 5 out of 10 Keanu's, right? He's pretty
Yeah.
good, but he's a little too old. He's too successful, but he's stupid and he's good with a sword. So heroic enough, right? We buy into him. They brutally slaughter him. They
Yeah.
bring in Rob Stark, young. He's like 8 out of 10 Keanu's, right? He's young. He's got a murdered father to avenge. He's got a lost throne to recover. And then they horribly slaughter him and his entire family. And now you think anything can happen to anybody. So
Hmm.
your emotional callus is gone, right? And so you don't notice that it's just a bog standard fantasy story from that point out. So
Yeah.
the amount of patience it takes to do 2 books, giant ass books of red herring, is very impressive. I mean, I appreciate it. And then there's other examples too, like Star Wars, right? It's the back half of Anakin's tragedy, but you're seeing it from the perspective of his nemesis. So it seems like an overcoming the monster plot that you can get into. And then that punch comes and it really hits because you weren't expecting it.
Yeah.
I think people are up to their ass in stories, right? And so it just gets to the point where you can call it, right? This is the act one twist or whatever.
Hmm.
And what that's why people get tired. And if you can rip that callus off and make people like buy into the story again, um, I think that's a good thing. That's a very good thing. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's my general philosophy.
Love that. Yeah. That being someone that was teaching creative writing not too long ago, I um, was just showing kind of that standard like Aristotelian plot diagram. And one
Yeah.
of the students said, "Is that a flowchart?" And it's like, well, yeah, but you can change it in any way. And that's actually that makes for a really good story when sort of the mold is broken and recast in some interesting way.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's fair. I mean, people want stories. They want the emotional commitment that, like with Lord of the Rings or something like that. They want to feel like it's Return of the King or something, but it's hard to do that when you're constantly surrounded by stories. I mean, it's just, I don't know if you ever played the guitar.
I
Uh,
haven't. I
I did
haven't.
for a while. I was awful at it, but while I was doing it, every time someone was playing the guitar on TV, I couldn't actually enjoy the music because I'm like watching their hands, trying to figure out what they're doing.
Mhm.
And so overexposure can be, bad, I think. So you gotta throw it out. You gotta get them confused. Got to get them twisted. and then they'll buy in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, you'll love SWAT if you enjoy twists. There's a lot of them. I love the moment where I do something and your perspective just goes
Hmm. Hmm.
everything that's happened before it. I love that. I love doing that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, what connected you with storytelling? What made you decide this was the place where you wanted to do that?
just started doing it when I was 5 or 6. And then
Yeah.
I mean, I was 8 and I would like write these stories that were basically page for page copies of whatever book I was reading, you know, that stage. And I've just always done it. I mean, I didn't really get super serious about it until my late 20s. I mean, I always wanted to be a writer, but like I don't think I ever understood how hard it was until kind of late in the day to actually do something, right?
Hmm.
I mean, it's
Hmm.
easy enough to write like a Tom Clancy type story, but to really go past that is it requires if you want to compete with the best, you got to be really serious, right? So and when you're a writer, you're always being compared to the best, like out of the gate, right? There's
Yeah.
no JV league for this. You're instantly trying to be in the majors, So,
Yeah. Now,
so
being a musical person, is music part of your creating process at all?
oh, I mean, I don't want to say I'm a musical person. I have very little musical talent. I cannot sing for the life of me. But I do really enjoy listening to it. And yeah, I mean, I tend to have a preference for stuff without vocals because that way it's not distracting me while I'm writing, right? So like
Hmm.
jazz, um, there's some French black gaze bands that I really enjoy for that because I don't understand a word of it, and so that helps. Um, I do feel like if it's in English, even if you're ignoring it, some part of your brain, some part of your language center of your brain is processing the song.
Hmm.
It sort of just sucks horsepower from where it needs to be. So I prefer it with no lyrics, I guess.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, how did comics become the place where you wanted to tell stories? Was there a particular connection to that medium, particular inspirations there?
well, looking back, I always enjoyed comics a lot. I read the newspaper comic section back when I was a kid, and even though I kind of knew it was terrible, I mean, it's been bad for a very long time. I mean, except for Calvin and Hobbes and like Far Side, it's been crap for 40 years basically, but at least um I feel like we just now segued the newspaper comic section from being stuck in the 70s to being stuck in the 90s. It's like there's been a generational changeover where now it's people stuck in the 90s. But anyway, you know, Sandman, I mean Archie. I read a lot of Archie when I was a kid.
Hmm.
Those
Hmm.
omnibuses they would have at the on the rack at the grocery store, that kind of thing. I wrote a comic and drew it when I was in high school, uh, which unfortunately, well, probably fortunately is lost now. But I can't draw, so it was all like geometric shapes, like with little, Anyway, but so but I stopped doing it, and I don't know. I guess I never really thought of it as an option until pretty recently, and then I just said I don't been wanting to do it for like 10 years, but I was too cheap to hire an artist, and I was too proud to beg.
Hmm.
Uh, so I just never got around to it. But I finally just said, screw it, let's just write a script for the fun of it, because I was tired of writing novels. And it was just like it was a revelation. I was like, I'm really good at this. Holy, and so, and I really enjoy doing it. So let's do it. So here we are.
Yeah. No novels are quite the echo chamber of describing and immersing and revisiting and yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I wrote 10 of them. Two of them kind of got published in the most pathetic way possible that involved me getting money and not paying someone to do it. Uh, but I really just hated the publishing world. I mean, it's all exploitative scumbaggery, at the bottom tier, at least. And looking back, I think everything I was doing should have just been a comic the whole time anyway. I mean, because
Yeah.
comics are way more open to weird ideas, and it's way easier to show things like that than it is to tell them. So I feel like I can do, in one issue what I was doing with 5,000 words or so.
Yeah.
Uh, that's like kind of the my exchange rate, I think. Um, at least for my style. But just conceptually, everything I was doing, I mean, I should go back and rewrite all of them as comics, and I want to do that, but it's really hard to go back to old projects.
Hmm.
Um, it's just like that oven's cold now, and I don't know if you can reheat it, Um, but yeah, so I just switched over to comics, and that's just where I've been ever since. I just really like it. I read them all the time now, and I mean, I basically tore through the indie section at the comic book store. I've got at least half of what's on the shelf at this point.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just there's a lot of good stuff happening. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy a lot of the writers here, and I enjoy doing it. And it's just I like the audience. It's great. I think I finally found an audience that's going to like appreciate it. I can communicate with them now, um, which I did sometimes with pros, but not often enough. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, so many cool things being published, and you have the indie comic space. You also have creator-owned spaces where you can share ideas. Anything that you'd like to share about what that's allowed you to do as far as creative steps?
The I mean, I've run my own business for like a long time now. Um, and so I'm pretty comfortable with sort of doing it on my own, and I like that a lot better. I'm much more comfortable as sort of an entrepreneur than I am, a supplicant.
Hmm.
Uh, and so that's been, I mean, there's ups and downs to it, like the first artist I hired was a huge mistake because I somebody recommended him, and I'm like, I looked at his stuff and I'm like, this has got to be a joke, right? That he can't possibly be doing this. And he got a recommendation. I should follow the recommendation. No, it was a huge mistake because that guy did not have it. I mean, Edge of Darkness is kind of demanding. What you saw is really, really good, I think, but his was
Hmm. Hmm.
not, right. So that wasted a year, and then it's taken a couple of years to get to this point. So, but still, I like getting it. I like kind of being my own boss in general, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
So
I love the science fiction, the supernatural sort of directions, and so it definitely sounds like you're a person who taps into that, and as you said, sort of the stranger approaches to story. Any particular areas that you'd like to visit in genre?
so there's a lot going on in SWAT, but one of the ways that you can interpret it is as an anti-tragedy.
Hmm. Hmm.
There's this one character, and I probably shouldn't have brought this up, but she is a horrible villain with one fatal virtue, and
Hmm.
that ends up dragging her painfully and slowly into being like not that shitty of a person.
Hmm.
And so that's one element of what's going on. Um, and then this is, I mean, it's a supernatural horror comedy, and it is that, but it also has a lot of I think it has a lot of psychological depth, right? Like Larry's a very he is a violent guy, but he's violent for because his experiences have sort of made him be that way. Like the universe he's in, he kind of requires it. Mr. Rogers would get eaten, pretty
Hmm.
quickly. And then there's just a lot of really intense relationships and psychological drama happening at the same time that it's a fun, you know. Um, I kind of try to do the Shakespeare thing where it's got levels where it can just be about the dog or whatever, but there's a layer above that and a layer above that where you can kind of pick what level you want to appreciate it on, hopefully.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
that probably sounded insanely pretentious, but whatever.
I didn't think so. I thought it sounded interesting, like
Yeah,
interesting
yeah.
storytelling.
So I mean, that's kind of to some degree, like going back to the deception thing, right? I was in a cult when I was a kid, right? And so I had this experience of going into the cult where everything I thought was true changed, and then we exited the cult and everything changed again. So I've
Wow.
had the whole worldview flipped over like 3 or 4 times, not just from the cult, but other times. And it kind of sucks while it's happening, but it's fascinating once it's over. And
Yeah.
that's I think that's a major part of what I end up exploring is sort of these how you can see the same event in different ways from different perspectives, or you know, if with this information it looks completely different than what you thought when it first happened. Uh, and that's kind of where the twists come from, I guess, right? Is
Hmm.
that's to some degree what a twist is you realize everything's different than what you thought, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I
uh,
love autobiographically informed storytelling too. So it sounds like you've made some creative steps out of
I
experiences.
yeah, I mean, this is the closest I'm going to get to my autobiography, and I mean, it's
Hmm.
completely fictional. I mean, I didn't actually fight a goblin slash accountant slash pirate at some point in my life, which is one of the Count von Zollen is one of the villains in the series, but it is deeply informed by. I mean, everything is deeply informed by the author's experiences. I mean, that's
Hmm.
how it is. You can't do anything else really. Um, but this one definitely is, you know, if you want like some 80s kid Missouri nerd stuff, yeah,
Yeah. Nice. Nice.
I don't know. But yeah, I mean it's very much it's about a lot of things. I mean, but mostly I to some degree I feel like I'm sort of channeling my exhaustion as a millennial, right? Like it I was in high school and Columbine happened and then 9/11
Yeah.
and then it's just, you know, there was like that 3 year period in the 90s where we thought everything was going to be okay forever, right? Tom Clancy had to come and bring the Japanese back as his geopolitical villain for one of his novels. That's how desperate we were for
Hmm.
an enemy. Um, and that's kind of messed a lot of people up, you know, like they thought history was over and now they're realizing it is not.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
history is an unending nightmare. So, you know, yay.
Right.
Um, but anyway,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah. Well, any sort of shout out to, we talked about the creative style on Edge of Darkness, but the creative style, the collaboration with SWAT that you'd like to mention.
Rachel's been great. I mean, the art really captures the exact level of sort of comic and serious that I was going for.
Hmm.
And I think we vibe where she gets my humor, which helps a lot because the art is needs to help deliver the jokes, right? The artist has to be on board with the humor, or you're. It's really hard to do comedy in comic format
Hmm.
that lands. I mean, there's a lot of you have to be very careful with your timing, and the artist has to get it, or it's not happening. Um, so I'm really happy with the result that what she's doing, you know. So she's been great. DC Hopkins is doing the lettering,
Nice. Nice.
and his I think it looks amazing. His lettering's great. So yeah, the team's been really cool. Um, and it's available on zoop.gg if you want to go check it out and pick up a copy. We've got a temporary tattoo, we've got a bookmark, and
Nice.
we've got trading cards coming. So we have a lot of fun options on the side.
Cool, cool. Well, in addition to the Zoop, any social media spaces, convention spaces, any other things like that that you'd like to mention where
I'm on
people can
probably the
connect?
main way to follow me would be on Facebook. Honestly, I've restarted my account to try to promote, you know, get involved in the comic world there.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, and that's where most of my energy is going at this point for social media. So that's where I would follow me. Rachel's on Twitter as Red Tie Bear, REDTIE Bear, and you can find her there. I am on Blue Sky or in Threads, but I don't really post there because so mostly Facebook.
Gotcha, gotcha. Anything that we missed in the chat that you want to make sure to share?
Uh, no, I mean, yeah, just buy it. You
Yep,
won't regret it. It's going to be good. Yeah.
nice, nice. Well, Justin, again, thank you for the patience with me as I was running behind, and thank you for the conversation, and glad to share about what you're working on.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.